Okay, that's all that song that I'm gonna get away with. Ah, Star Wars, my favorite franchise growing up. Battlefront 2 was the peak of gaming for me as a wee Padawan, and the first Star Wars movie I ever saw was Star Wars Episode 3 in theaters, and while I was completely lost, it was a fun time to watch with all of those backflips. Ah, what a great movie for kids. It wasn't until I was much older that I really started to understand and appreciate Star Wars. So imagine my excitement when a new trilogy was announced with Star Wars The Force Awakens. And the fans were excited for this new entry, and they had a ton of questions, such as, why is Finn black? I thought all stormtroopers were Tamura Morrison, even though that's clones and not stormtroopers. Or is Finn gonna be the first black Jedi, completely ignoring Samuel L. Jackson, and that obviously the main character is going to be Rey. Her name is Rey. Like a ray of hope. Read a book, people. When I first saw the film, I thought it was okay. Not great, not terrible. I thought it was too similar to A New Hope, but a good starting point for answering some mysteries in the following films and develop the characters further. After seeing The Last Jedi, though, that thought was squished, and I now retroactively hate Episode 7. But I had a thought. Is Episode 7 as bad as they say if we ignore the next two films? Like if it was first released, was my initial thought correct? Or was I blinded by nostalgia? So that's a question I want to answer today. Was The Force Awakens as bad as they say, if it was to just come out? So this film follows a pretty typical movie setup. There's a MacGuffin, both good guys and bad guys want it, and by the end of the film, both sides fight each other, and then good conquers evil. It's the premise of a lot of games and movies, and even the premise of A New Hope. And this will not be the last time I compare those two films. Let's start off with the title, The Force Awakens. Why is it called that? You can argue that it means that the Force has awakened within Rey, and she does get stronger with the Force over time. For some reason. Every Jedi needs to train the Force abilities, but she's pulling out Force Persuade and Force Pull on day one. Every other title is pretty straightforward. A New Hope? Yeah, that's Luke. The Empire Strikes Back? Guess what the Empire's doing in this film? That's right, they're striking back. With a title like The Force Awakens, you'd expect it to be dormant, but that's obviously not the case. Sure, Snoke says within the film that there's been an awakening, but what does that even mean? Should have called it The Search for Luke or BB-8's Grand Adventure. All I'm saying is that BB-8 is the greatest character in the film and he deserves top billing. In the film though, we start with a humongous Star Destroyer blocking out a moon, and then the First Order descends upon a planet. We meet the second best character after BB-8, named Poe, as he's getting the final piece to a map to locate Luke Skywalker. Alright, some mysteries being set up. Where's Luke? Why is he gone? What's he been up to? Inquiring minds want to know. And then the First Order descends upon the camp, gunning down innocent civilians. And then BB-8 is forced to run away with the map piece as Poe is taken captive. And Finn, the soon-to-flip-size stormtrooper, realizes that he may be one of the baddies. Great opening. It's tense, serious, and it sets up some good mysteries. So long as nothing ruins the mood, I like it.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
And there's the poorly timed comedy. We just witnessed an evil space empire cull a bunch of unarmed people, and Poe is over here thinking up one-liners? This just ruins the mood that's been set. I wish that there was some similar movie opening I could compare this to really explain what makes it so bad. Oh wait, there is A New Hope. We start with a visualization of the size and scale that the bad guys are working on. Stormtroopers attack in mass, gunning down tons of people. The main baddie is clothed in all black and makes a dramatic entrance. And he displays his strength by killing somebody that he's questioning. A droid with a MacGuffin then escapes the scene, and a main character is captured by the main baddie. Yeah. It's the exact same scene. So imagine if when Leia was captured, she looked Vader up and down and said something along the lines of, "Let me guess, your favorite band is My Chemical Romance." It would ruin the entire atmosphere setup. And Star Wars has always had humor. It just knew how to use it more appropriately in the past. Mostly. We then meet Rey scavenging a Star Destroyer, and as much as this film does have flaws, I have to give it up to how they display the scale of objects in this movie. Sure, we know that they're big, but in space you don't get a real sense of how ginormous they really are. We see that she's a scavenger, trading parts for portions of food while living on another desert planet. I guess by this point, every main Jedi character needs to start out on a sand planet. But she is all alone on this planet while living inside of a downed AT-AT, kind of like a cut-open tauntaun. Although it probably smells better inside of the AT-AT. It seems like she's been counting the number of days that she's been on this planet, and has also never heard of grouping them by fives. This would be an utter pain to try to count. Then while gazing out at an endless stream of sand before her, she hears BB-8 cry out for help, and she saves him from a scavenger. Where have I seen a scene like this before? She asks where he's from, and he says that it's top secret, and Rey says, oh, just like me, kind of wink-wink nudge-nudging at the audience. Now I know her origin is messed with and a bit disappointing in the next two films, but here it's a nice mystery because of course fans are gonna speculate on who she is. Is she Luke's daughter, or a clone of Luke, or maybe the daughter of Obi-Wan Kenobi? Or maybe the daughter of Jar Jar Binks? It could be anything. Personally, at the time, I subscribed to her being a clone of Luke Skywalker because of the whole re-emergence of the Skywalker lightsaber. There was a whole hand attached to that thing the last time we saw it, and I may not be a two-legged albino giraffe alien, but I'm pretty sure that would make some great cloning material. Meanwhile, back on the Star Destroyer, Finn decides that being on the side that literally guns down unarmed civilians may not be a good look for him. So he rescues Poe to help him escape, but not before Kylo got the information he needed from Poe's mind, now knowing that the map is with a BB-8 unit. Finn in the later films isn't the best, but I like that he flips sides just because he's scared, not because he's trying to do the right thing or take down the First Order or join the Resistance. My man is just trying to live.
Why are you helping me?
Because it's the right thing to do.
You need a pilot.
I need a pilot.
He and Poe then steal a TIE fighter, but they left the parking brake on by accident, alerting the entire ship to their escape. They take out some turrets, do some peak male bonding, do some maneuvers, but ultimately, they do get shot down and fall back to Jakku. Poe and Finn's dynamic is honestly great. Oscar Isaac kills his part in the film, and I can't wait to see their interaction throughout the rest of the movie. Oh. Well, that sucks. This is where the film makes its biggest mistake, and that's saying something. Copying A New Hope is lazy, but hey, at least they copied a good formula. However, removing Poe until the last act of the film is so upsetting. Just imagine having Poe and Finn interact throughout the entirety of the film. It would have also set up a dynamic between a trio instead of a duo. I feel like there's another film that does something just like this. Okay, yes, I'm complaining that they didn't use another element from A New Hope, but in my defense, the trope of having two girls and a guy as a group in a movie is not that unique anymore since the release of A New Hope. It's an overused trope because it works. I'll have more to say on this throughout the film, so let's move on. After the crash, Finn finds the one settlement for miles thanks to convenient writing, I mean the Force. Definitely the Force. BB-8 then spots him and calls him a dirty, no good, nefarious thief because he's wearing Poe's jacket and assumes that he stole it. Rey then knocks him down with her staff thingy, and BB-8 initiates advanced interrogation methods.
Ow!
Oh god, I love this droid. Some may disagree with me on this, but I think that this scene makes sense. Rey's been on this hostile planet since she was a little kid. So to survive, of course she'd have to learn to defend herself, and it also communicates to the audience that she's a fighter. I just kinda wish they didn't make Finn a wimp. This man has been trained as a stormtrooper since he was a child. Give him a win. My boy is getting his butt whooped throughout the entire film. Sure, he's a coward, but make him a capable one. After getting his face swamped, he clears up the confusion, explaining that he helped Poe escape the Star Destroyer, but unfortunately, Poe didn't make it. And also that the First Order is probably going to come looking for that BB-8 unit. And not a minute later, troopers spot him. This is when the Scooby-Doo gang decide it's time to get off Jakku. They just need to pick their ride. And fortunately for them, they've got nostalgia on their side.
What about that ship?
That was garbage! The garbage will
One Millennium Falcon's available with the keys already in the ignition. No, seriously, she just flips it on and it goes, like no hot wiring or nothing. This guy's lucky that the Millennium Falcon only just now got stolen. Finn advises Rey to stay low as it messes with the TIE Fighter's targeting system, and Rey knows just the spot to try and lose him. I love this. Finn is contributing his knowledge as a stormtrooper, and Rey is contributing with her knowledge of the surrounding area. It's awesome. What's not awesome is how my girl knows how to fly this thing. She's never flown anything, she says it herself. Luke had experience with his T-16 Skyhopper back home to at least know how to fly an X-Wing. It's almost like this group dynamic needed a pilot to balance out the mix. They did Oscar Isaac dirty, not including his character and more. And then he could fly, Finn could shoot and advise TIE weaknesses, and Rey could go around the ship, removing those inhibiting mods that were placed inside of the Falcon, thus improving its maneuverability. A dynamic trio where everyone has strengths and weaknesses. And maybe Rey could then get on the second gun, and initially her aim is really bad. But then she starts to calm herself and focus, and then her aim starts to improve, ultimately shooting down one of the TIE fighters, thus alluding to her connection to the Force. No, wait, that's just another scene from A New Hope. Man, it's really easy to copy that movie, I guess. But instead, we get Rey pulling off Maverick-level maneuvers her first time flying, and they get off this 1-in-a-million shot. At least it's not as bad as Kid Anakin taking down a droid control ship with pure luck. Back at the First Order, unlucky employee number 1 drew the short straw and has to inform Kylo that unfortunately, the droid escaped. He acts like a baby and throws a temper tantrum. And then, the employee informs him that they were aided with the help of a girl. And Kylo loses it.
What girl?
Alright, we're building some mystery here. It's clear that Diet Darth here knows something about Rey, but what? Okay, sure, now we know how disappointing this revelation was, but at the time, I think it was a good build on the mystery. Back aboard the Falcon, Rey is repairing the ship, and Finn is shooting his shot with Rey. He straight up asks her if she's got a boyfriend.
Got a boyfriend? Cute boyfriend?
Sure, Luke had the hots for Leia, but at least when the danger started, he started thinking with his head upstairs and not downstairs, if you catch my meaning. Rey, ever focused on the task at hand, asks Finn to give her the location of the Resistance base so that she can plot a course there. Okay, see, Finn told her that he was part of the Resistance, but he's not. But ever the wingman, BB-8 doesn't rat him out. Instead, BB-8 gives her the location to the Resistance base. Have I mentioned how much I love BB-8? But before they can hyperdrive out of there, they get boarded by a hostile vessel. However, it's not the First Order, but instead, it's nostalgia, with Han and Chewie back on the Millennium Falcon. Han then threatens to leave everyone on the next inhabited world, but then the gang explains what's actually going on and what their mission is, and then the ship is actually boarded by a hostile vessel. This next scene is a complete waste of time, so I'm just going to speed through it. It turns out Han ripped off 2 gangs and they want their money back. It seems that Han was using the funds to hunt down some dangerous tentacle monsters, and no, not the fun kind. The gang threatens Han, and then Rey accidentally releases the creatures. They go around munching down everybody all Pac-Man style until Finn is ultimately grabbed by one of the creatures. Rey then closes a door on the tentacles, thus freeing Finn, and the whole gang get back aboard the Millennium Falcon and they hyperdrive out of there. But oh no, unfortunately, one of the gang leaders survives and informs the First Order that the droid is on the Millennium Falcon. This whole scene was pointless. We learn nothing new about our characters, and our characters don't learn anything new themselves or grow in some way. Maybe Rey saving Finn is supposed to communicate to the audience that she has Force sensitivity, but that's already been alluded to already, and we get more examples of that in the future, so I'm not quite sure if that's the point. Also, all she did was time pressing a button. I could do that. Sure, this event leads to them learning that they're on the Millennium Falcon, but later on, a different spy calls up the First Order when spotting the gang at Maz's bar. So no, this entire scene was a waste of time that could have been used instead to answer some gosh darned questions in this film. Just skip this whole scene and straight edge wipe over to Kylo talking to Snoke. Ah, Snoke, another great idea that was retroactively ruined by the sequels. Since I'm focusing on if this movie was just released with no sequels, I still think that Snoke was a great idea. It makes you ask, who and what is he? Where did he come from? And what is his ultimate goal for the galaxy at large? A popular theory at the time was that Snoke was going to be Palpatine's former master, Darth Plagueis the Wise. But I always hated that idea. Instead, I wanted something new. Kind of. So I was kind of hoping that Disney would take inspiration from Star Wars Legends and make Snoke some kind of dark side master that was hiding deep in the Outer Rim, building his strength. And then he was the reason that Palpatine was building up an empire with unmatched military strength, because he wanted to be prepared for the day that Snoke would finally make his move and attack. Okay, so real quick, in Legends, there's this race called the Yuuzhan Vong, who were outside of the Star Wars galaxy and were eventually going to invade. Palpatine knew this, and he was preparing for it, which is why he built the Empire the way that he did. Okay, well, mostly he did it because he was an evil maniac who wanted unlimited power, but also the Yuuzhan Vong was a thing. The details are not important, but what I was thinking was that Disney could do that idea, but replace the Yuuzhan Vong with Snoke. Like he's out there at the edge of the galaxy, building up his strength and forces, using ancient technology like a Star Forge to build up all of the infrastructure. I mean, the super duper Death Star pulls in star matter to work, just like a Star Forge, so I thought my idea was pretty cool. So yeah, Snoke was a good idea if it had a satisfying answer in the future. Anyways, Snoke tells Kylo that the droid is with his dad, Han Solo. And I gotta say, I really like that they didn't hide this fact from the audience. I mean, we already have way too many parallels to A New Hope. Let's not throw any from The Empire Strikes Back into the mix, okay? If they just moved this scene to a little bit later on, we could have skipped the entire tentacle monster scene. I'm sorry to bring it up again, I just really hate that scene. Back with the good guys, Rey bypassed the compressor, and Finn is patching up Chewie's arm because he got shot earlier in the fight. It doesn't come up again, so don't worry about it. The furball is fine. To relax, Finn adds a bit more nostalgia to the mix. Hey, remember these from A New Hope? Remember what franchise you're watching? If we show enough references, you may enjoy this movie a tiny bit more. After all that, it's time for some heavy exposition. Han tells the gang that the Force, Luke, everything, it's all real, and Luke disappeared after a trainee of his, Kylo, destroyed everything, and Luke may have disappeared to go and look for the first Jedi temple. For some reason.
The Jedi were real.
I used to wonder about that myself. Thought it was a bunch of mumbo-jumbo.
Now, I'm sure that some people have issue with this scene because how can they think that Luke is a myth? It wasn't that long ago. Now, this film has issues, a lot of them, but this isn't one of them. Over 99% of the galaxy has never seen a Jedi or Force powers, even before the Empire existed. Most just knew them as some religious group that worked with the government. They didn't actually believe the powers were real. Think about it. Someone tells you that there's an order of space samurai that can control things with their minds, and then, during the Civil War, one of them joins the rebellion and not only takes down the Death Star, but is the son of Darth Vader, who he then redeems, and that leads to the redeemed Darth Vader killing the Emperor, who, by the way, can shoot lightning out of his fingertips. Yeah, okay, sure, buddy. Just say that this Luke Skywalker character was made up to boost recruitment numbers. This scene also lets the audience know that Kylo was the one who destroyed the rising Jedi Order, so he must be pretty gifted, but also a bit of a brat. After the history lesson, Han and company land on Takodana, and he offers Rey a job and gives her a gun. She's never used one, but you can bet that she's gonna hit a trooper on her second shot ever. What can't she do? Okay, in fairness, Luke also got a lot of lucky shots off in A New Hope, but at least he had practice with a blaster shooting womp rats back home. On this new planet, we've got some more nostalgia. Remember the cantina scene from A New Hope? There's one in this movie too. The cantina is run by Maz Kanata, who apparently is dating Chewbacca. I don't know if that's a joke, it's never brought up again, but hey, I ship him. Now, something I have to give credit to in this film is the use of practical effects. CGI is used for certain effects throughout the film, obviously, but whenever they can make an alien using practical effects, they do it. I mean, they go hard at times. I mean, look at the dump truck on this beast. They didn't have to do that, but they did. Now, Maz is a CGI alien, but she has more exposition to give, so she needs a bit more expression than a practical effect could do. Over dinner, she explains how she's seen evil take many forms, from the Sith to the Empire, and now it's the New Order, and that they need to stand up and fight. Finn says nuh-uh, and that he ain't fighting. He's not even part of the Resistance. And then Rey's all like, dang, the guy I just met that was abducted as a child by the First Order and has seen firsthand what they're capable of doesn't want to fight? Wow, you think you know a guy. Finn gets way too much flack for not wanting to stick around. Of course he changes his mind later on, but dude has probably seen some stuff and has unresolved PTSD.
There is no fight against the First Order. Not one we can win.
Don't look at him all disappointing like. Rey then does what any woman would do in this situation. She follows some distant yells into a dank dark dungeon at the bottom of a sleazy bar she's never been to, all alone. And I know that this is supposed to be the Force reaching out to Rey, but I swear it looks like BB-8 can hear the voices too. BB-8 is Force sensitive, confirmed. In the dungeon, she finds Luke's lightsaber from before, well, you know. Touching it, she sees visions of the past and future, as well as voices of the past. Maz finds her snooping and then proceeds to lore dump all over her. She explains that this lightsaber was Luke's, and before that, it was Anakin's, and that her family that she's waiting for on Jakku is never coming back. But she may find a sense of belonging if she goes to find Luke Skywalker. Rey then rejects the call to adventure. Oh my god, we're already halfway through the film and we're only at step 3 of 12 of the hero's journey? Just kidding, the hero's journey isn't that rigid of a formula. But Rey does reject the call and she runs into the forest. I don't know where she's going, but the movie has to find some way of separating the characters. It's her hero's journey and she can cry if she wants to. Back with the baddies, Kylo is talking to the melted mask of his grandfather and he tells it that he is being pulled towards the light.
I feel it again. The pull to the light.
We usually hear people struggling with being pulled to the dark side of the Force, so this is an interesting twist as we rarely hear of someone being pulled to the light side of the Force. Sure, Vader did it first, but it only really happens within Episode 6, so it's still a nice little twist. And who could he be talking to when he's looking at the mask of Vader? Another mystery added to the pile. I sure hope this doesn't become a devastating disappointment in the future films. And elsewhere, General Hux is giving a speech to the troops. And if the officer uniforms and the name Stormtroopers didn't tip you off who the Empire was meant to symbolize within the original trilogy, it becomes pretty clear right about now. And the reason for the speech is because they're about to fire the super duper Death Star laser. And yes, I know it's called Starkiller Base, but it's just a new bigger Death Star. I'm not going to call it that. And these baddies sure know how to pick a view. To be honest, all of the environments in this film are glorious. Really, everything other than the plot is outstanding in this film, including costume design and the prior mentioned practical effects. And on release, the plot wasn't that bad, it was just done better, in a better film, with better characters. Speaking of plot done before, Hux fires the laser, and he destroys 5 planets, one of them including what I assume is the capital of the New Republic. So this is just the Alderaan destruction scene combined with this scene.
The Imperial Senate will no longer be of any concern to us. The last remnants of the old Republic have been swept away.
So not only can this Death Star shoot multiple planets, it can also fire through hyperspace. The writing team must have never heard of the term power creep. Next thing you know, they're gonna start outfitting Star Destroyers with Death Star lasers or something. Can you imagine? Not every Star Wars movie needs a super weapon. It gets kinda boring after a while, and it just leads to one-upping in future films. We went through an entire prequel trilogy without a single super weapon, but A New Hope had one, so I guess this one will have one too. Oh, and the main crew can see the laser from their planet? Where are we in relation to everything? Because right after this, the First Order shows up a minute later. I know this weapon is meant to be in another system, but everything going on makes it seem like Takodana, the capital, and the Death Star planet are all right next to each other. The Order must just be really efficient to show up as fast as they did. And then there's this shot of some TIE fighters flying in front of a setting sun, but the scene after it looks like it takes place during midday. Sure, it's a cool shot and all, but it doesn't fit. You can't just place a Vietnam homage just because you want to. Maz then hands Finn the lightsaber, I guess because she wants him to return it to Luke Skywalker, or maybe she just ran out of blasters to hand out. Han then asks what everybody is thinking, "Where the heck did you get that?" To which Maz responds,
A good question.
for another time.
Okay, we've officially reached the mystery limit here. No more mystery boxes, Mr. Abrams. You need to supply some answers too. Snoke's a mystery, Rey's a mystery, Vader's a mystery, what Luke is doing is a mystery, and the lightsaber is a mystery. You can have some of these, but not all of them. Maybe if we didn't waste time on the tentacle monster scene, we'd have time to answer a few of these questions. I'm sorry, I just really hate the tentacle monster scene. Back to the film, Rey shoots a trooper, and Han does some hero shots. Remember when shootouts used to be tense in this? Finn then gets called a traitor and gets his butt beat. That is until Han Solo saves the day. Then the cavalry arrive, and my theory that all these planets are right next to each other just gets a bit more stronger. It turns out that Poe survived the crash, and I remember upon release, a lot of people said that this didn't make any sense. But remember, Finn's ejector seat landed him really far away from the crash site, so the same thing probably happened to Poe, and he also says that he didn't wake up until nighttime. So, it makes sense. Now, I don't know how he got off of Jakku, but once he finds a transmitter, he can just call for a transport. And look at those moves that he pulls. Just another reason he should have been included with the group from the get-go. Meanwhile, Rey's getting captured by Kylo, and remember this trench and location for later, okay? Finn sees her getting taken away, and he does his signature move. He yells Rey's name. He's like a Pokemon, except saying his own name, he just yells Rey's. And then General Leia is reunited with Han Solo, and C-3PO has a new red arm. Yay, another mystery, except this time you have to buy a tie-in comic to get some answers. Yay! BB-8 and Finn then reunite with Poe, and the bro dynamic is as strong as ever. If only Poe was included more, and no, I will not get over his exclusion from the group. I will die on this hill. We then learn that R2-D2 has been suffering from clinical depression ever since Luke left. Been there, buddy. Been there. Back with Rey, we find out that she's getting the Guantanamo Special. Kylo is trying to read Rey's mind so he can find Luke's location, since she did see the map piece's location, and since Kylo already has the rest of the map, with it in hand, he'll be able to locate Luke's location in the galaxy. There's then some more mysteries around what Kylo is seeing in Rey's mind, and then boom! She flips it around on him, and now she's reading his mind and his insecurities around the fact that he fears he may not be as strong as Darth Vader. He then leaves like a mad little baby, and Rey uses Force Persuade to escape and get a hold of a weapon.
You will remove these restraints and leave this cell with the door open.
I will remove these restraints and leave the cell with the door open.
Okay, I've been really charitable on what Rey can do, but this is the last straw. Knowing staff combat because she needed to be able to survive on a hostile world. That makes sense. Knowing the inner workings of ships, especially Star Destroyers, due to her years of scavenging ships like down Star Destroyers. Yeah, I can buy that. But pulling off an advanced force technique that she just learned exists with no training? Come on. It would have been funny if she tried to use Force Persuade, but she fails, which the movie almost did, and then she's forced to find another way to escape. But nah, screw that. Her Force is awakened, so she can just do that now. They pulled this same kind of stuff with Kid Anakin in Episode 1. Each trilogy, they just try to make the new main Force user more gifted than the last. If they ever make a fourth trilogy, I can see them making the main Force user of those films start using the Force right after they're born. Oh my god, I can actually see them doing that. Like all of the medical equipment just starts to float as the mother's pushing the baby out. Back with the Resistance, they talk about how the super duper Death Star works. It turns out that it drains a sun for power, and there's a weak point that if shot at, will destroy the whole thing. Oh, and that looks like a trench. Han, Finn, and Chewie then sneak onto the Death Star planet to take down the shields. I guess the First Order finally learned to add the shield generator to the super weapon instead of outside of it. But uh-oh, Kylo senses a presence he hasn't felt in years. His daddy's here. The group then captures Captain Phasma so that she will disable the shields. Yeah, I haven't really mentioned Captain Phasma up until now because she doesn't do anything. Oh, and you know what we haven't seen in a while though? That's right, nostalgia! So Finn decides to throw Captain Phasma into a trash compactor. Remember when that happened to Luke and Troop? I sure do. Also, Disney really spent a lot of time and money hyping up Captain Phasma as the new Boba Fett type that won't take nothing from nobody, only to just not use her at all. All she does is stand there looking shiny, and then she gets captured, lower the shields, and then get thrown into the literal garbage. At least Boba Fett went out fighting. Mostly. Okay, he got taken out by a blind guy, but that's still better, I think. Finn and friends then find Rey, and they go over to blow a hole into the planet's weak point. Han and Chewie have the bombs, and they start placing them all over the place. But before that, Han hands Chewie the detonator. For some reason. I remember seeing this scene in theaters and thinking to myself, wait a minute, why is Han giving Chewie the detonator? He's also placing bombs. He could just be the one to detonate. Oh, Han's gonna die. Harrison Ford notoriously hates playing Han Solo, so I like to think that he had it written in his character that he'll die in this movie so they can never offer him any more money to come back and play the character in the future. But how he forgets that Force Ghost memory things exist in Star Wars. Disney won't let you go, Harrison. Just say no to the money if you don't enjoy it. I saw your performance in Ender's Game. It's clear you're not having fun. Just enjoy your retirement. Sorry about that, got a bit distracted. So yeah, Kylo penetrates his dad. Han tries to convince him to come home. His family misses him and to stop wearing that stupid helmet that makes him look like a duck. But even though Kylo's conflicted, he does what he thinks he needs to do, and he stabs Han Solo to death. And then he takes a bowcaster shot to the side. Yeah, the same thing flipping stormtroopers, he just tanks it. Awesome. Then, still bleeding, he intercepts Rey and Finn. They had a lead on him. How did he get in front of them?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
While bleeding, he punches his still open wound just to get some more pain and anger to fuel the dark side of the Force, and he 1v1s Finn, obviously toying with him. People that think that Finn is actually holding his own in this fight need to re-watch it. Kylo is a cocky little brat that's playing with his food, leading to Finn getting a lucky shot on Kylo, and it's then that Kylo decides to finish the fight. But there's still an issue I have with this scene. Why can't Kylo force pull the lightsaber that's stuck in the snow? Other than it being a similar scene in an Empire Strikes Back, it makes no sense. It's like he has no effect on it, but Rey can pull it to herself, no problem. Never have I seen a lightsaber, or any object for that matter, choose who to go to. To quote Han Solo,
"That's not how the Force works."
The Force, while in some ways has a will of its own, it can be harnessed and used by anyone who is Force sensitive. The Force is not this choosy, and it's only in very specific instances is the use of the Force lost or inhibited, and this is not one of those times. I'm sorry, they just made the Force a bigger Deus Ex Machina than it already was. Meanwhile, in space, Poe is doing a trench run. It's literally just a trench run like in Episode 4. But instead of making an impossible shot, he slips right into the planet, blowing it up from the inside, sending it into implode mode. Back on the planet, Rey is having her own trench battle. Ooh, symmetry. What's more is that this environment mirrors the one where she first encountered Kylo Ren, but this time, she's a bit more powerful. Ooh, symbolism. Over the course of the fight, Rey gets the upper hand and takes down Kylo, giving him a slash across the face. And honestly, I'm kind of torn on this scene because on one hand, sure, Kylo is critically injured and he's acting overconfident, leading him to lose the fight. But on the other hand, it's kind of BS that Rey can beat somebody who was not only trained by Luke Skywalker, but also a Dark Master. Honestly, I wish they played up Kylo's injury and made it so that it was Finn who got a lucky shot on Kylo because of his overconfidence. And then Rey just barely holds out until the planet forcefully separates them. This way it shows just how powerful Kylo is and sets him up as a very dangerous enemy for the future films. I also like that he gets a face injury, potentially leading to him getting some more cybernetics, mirroring how he might become more man than machine. Just like Darth Vader. I mean, that doesn't happen in the following films, but it's a cool potential setup. Anywho, Rey and Finn get picked up just in the nick of time to escape the exploding planet. And then R2-D2 just wakes up with the rest of the map. Convenient. Yeah, so when BB-8 was trying to talk to R2-D2 earlier on in the movie, he mentioned how he had a piece of a map to Luke Skywalker. That then sent R2-D2 deep within his memory banks to see if he could find any other pieces of this map, and then he just happened to wake up with the rest of the map that was left to him by Luke right after the fighting stopped. Yeah, sure. Okay, they're just trying to wrap up the film with coincidences now. It's not like Rey could have mentioned to the rest of the group that she was told that Kylo has the rest of the map and that they need to go and search for it somewhere in the archives of the planet before blowing it up. Oh well, I mean, maybe they would have had time for a scene like that if they didn't waste time with the tentacle monster scene. I'm sorry, last time I'm bringing it up, but I really don't like that scene. With the map now complete, R2, Rey, and Chewie go off to find Luke Skywalker. They find him on an island looking very somber as Rey extends the lightsaber to him, and the film ends. After having watched this film twice and rewatching A New Hope, I can say that if you ignore the future films, that this movie is... It's okay. It never reaches the highest of highs of the old films, but also not the lowest of lows. It is, however, way too similar to A New Hope for its own good, leading to comparisons while viewing it, thus lessening the experience. It rushes character development and sets up way too many mysteries to be answered upon future films that leave you with way more questions than answers. This ultimately makes the film's long-term appeal dependent on how well these mysteries are answered in the next movies. Like, imagine if just Episode 4 existed. No prequels, no sequels, just Episode 4. And it would still be an amazing experience because it tells a fully complete story. Setups that are paid off well in sequels can obviously elevate a film as seen in Empire Strikes Back, but it's ultimately more risky. So I think it was a pretty big mistake to have just so many mysteries that need to be answered in Episode 8 and 9. Not to mention, in my opinion, the mistake of not including Poe more and poor pacing. So now I think I can answer the question of how bad was it on release? Yeah, it's not great, but not terrible either. It didn't become as bad as it is now until the release of the sequels, thus retroactively making it a worse experience to watch. This is why you fully plan out a trilogy before you start filming and not decide that Rey's parents are nobodies until you start filming for Episode 9 and then decide, hey, what if we make her a Palpatine? Like, seriously, J.J. Abrams, what were you thinking? Okay, so rewatching this film 2 times has given me a headache, so I'm gonna go take an Advil. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and all that. Oh, and stay awesome, y'all. Ow, my head.